This piece of Lisa is being brought to you by Mutual Security Credit Union. Find out more at mscu.com. One of the things that I care most about in the world is the right and the plight of women in this world. And one of the places in which women are subjugated in terms of the actual letter of the law beyond all other countries is Saudi Arabia. So today we have an expert with us, Mr. Al-Fadi, who's a scholar and expert on Islam and a leading Middle East analyst. Welcome to the Lisa Wexler Show, Mr. Al-Fadi. You recently wrote an article about the plight of women and where it derives in Islamic law in terms of the restrictions against specifically women driving in Saudi Arabia. Why did that come about? What is that about?
Thank you for inviting me over. The article that I wrote has to do basically with the frustration, not just of myself, but even of women in Saudi Arabia and many other, even male members in Saudi Arabia. It seems like Saudi Arabia is the only country in the world that, for one reason or another, believes that if women were to drive on their own, they are going to put the society at risk. In other words, they're going to say this is a violation of Sharia law, because apparently Sharia law prohibits women in general, and we're not talking Muslim women here, any woman who live under Sharia law, there are certain rules and regulations that apply to her, one of which that she cannot really travel anywhere without having a male companion. So basically the hardline religious leaders in Saudi Arabia believe that if a woman were to drive, that means she is now free to be away from her companion. She will be able to do things that she is not permitted to do if she wasn't able to drive. She will be able to travel alone. She may even leave her husband and commit even adultery. So they go as far as these ridiculous excuses. But the problem that they do not share with people is many of these women actually do have driver's license. When they travel abroad, they drive. The other issue that they do not share with us also is the fact that many of these women have chauffeurs or have drivers who are sometimes from other countries, not even Saudi natives. So it's okay for a woman to be in the company of a foreign man rather than have her own car. In fact, some of these chauffeurs or drivers ended up committing adultery or, rape, sexual rapes against these women. So the women in Saudi Arabia have every right to complain about the fact that they are tied into their own home. They're confined. They cannot do anything. They can't even go and buy a medicine for their child if the father or a male companion is not available. So it's really not fair.
Well, it's completely not fair. It's a very paternalistic, very infantilizing view, if you will, of women and their own souls and their own right of self-destination. But I understand from you that this, in fact, is not the legislative law of Saudi Arabia, but this is a result of religious edicts that are, in fact, enforced by the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia.
That is correct, and I want to be fair to the government. I know the government these days will be willing to allow women to drive. The only problem, if they do this, these religious hardliners will end up issue decrees and fatwas against the government itself, stating that the government is defiling now a holy land by doing things that are not permitted by Sharia law. They did this 20 years ago when the government of Saudi Arabia asked the U.S. to come and defend them against Iraq. So just by doing something like that, these religious hardliners believe that they have every right to criticize the government too.
And they have more power with the people than the government? Is that the fear?
That is true. And, if you look at September 11, it took 19 members only to terrorize the entire world. So you can imagine if about 1 or 2% of the religious hardliners in Saudi Arabia would rise and they would issue fatwas and ask people to rally, all they need is just a minority to terrorize the whole nation.
It's true, isn't it? I mean, it's always those few haters on the fringe that ruin everything for everybody else. One of the other things that you point out in your article, you talk about the Quran, and you say that there are passages that deal with the status of women and their relationship to a man. You write, in Q3:14, one is shocked to read that women are placed at an equal ground with cattle, horses, gold, silver, and wealth.
That is correct. That is correct. In fact, if you would look at the commentaries on that particular verse, and I'm talking about Islamic and classical Islamic commentaries, they would say that all of these items listed in this verse are some of the prosperity signs that God gives to the man. So if that's the case, we're counting women now alongside of cattle and wealth and everything else.
Oh, in other words, so is that why Sharia law permits up to 4 wives, because women are a symbol of status and wealth?
That will be one of which, of course. And that also tells me that the man is nowhere near to be equal to a woman. How can a man be equal to a woman when he have the right to marry up to 4? How can he divide himself into becoming one for each one of them? There is no way this can happen.
Are you a Muslim yourself, Mr. Al-Fadi?
I am a former Muslim.
Oh, really? Tell me about yourself. Where did you grow up, and how is it that you converted to a different faith?
I was born and raised in Saudi Arabia. That's why I'm intimately familiar with Saudi Arabia. It's my country, basically, where I was raised, and I lived most of my life in there. And then I left Saudi Arabia in the early 1990s, and since I came to the West, I began to realize that many of the things that I was taught about Islam and about the view of Islam towards Westerners and Christians and Jews, all of it is false. And I began to search for the truth, and I began to compare things, and I made a determination back in the early 2000s that Islam wasn't the true religion for me, and I made a decision to follow Christ.
So you converted to Christianity?
That is correct. And just by doing so, under Sharia law, the punishment for me is death.
You know, that's really interesting for me because, you know, we have a president, Barack Obama, whose father was a Muslim, and according to the Muslim faith, your faith passes through the father, not the mother. And so for Barack Obama to declare himself a Christian, which of course he does, he says he's a committed practicing Christian, in the Muslim world, wouldn't they have to view him as some kind of an apostate, a bad guy?
You know, there's 2 views on that. One would be, yes, he is an apostate, but the other view would say, just because of his sensitive position, it is possible that he is hiding his real affinity to Islam out of, you know, fear of maybe jeopardizing his job. I personally don't think the president is a follower of Islam, but that's at least the view in the streets these days in the Islamic world. But either way, you're right about what you stated, that according to Sharia law, he automatically inherited the religion whether he made the choice or not. So for him to declare publicly that he's not a follower of Islam, technically he's an apostate, that's for sure.
You're saying that the Muslim world views him as really in his heart to be a Muslim?
They can justify that because under Sharia law, there is a doctrine that allows a person to hide his faith out of fear of jeopardizing his position, out of fear of, causing some harm to himself or others. Now, that's what I'm saying is they may view it this way. The president, in many ways and in many actions, have made it very clear that he is not a follower of Islam. But certainly they will try to use that to their advantage. Think about it. I mean, he's in the White House, so they need him much more than he needs them.
No, this is true. I have always believed that. I have not. How shall I put this? I have always believed that, to some great degree, Barack Obama believes that one of the reasons he was selected to lead this country right now is to make amends with the Muslim world. I think that he believes that he is uniquely suited to do this, and however it is that he can communicate with them verbally or non-verbally, I believe he uses to his advantage, hopefully the country's advantage, but frankly, sometimes I'm really not sure what he's doing. I think has such an Arabist view of the world that sometimes I'm a little shocked and I'm a little bit taken aback about that.
Well, I mean, I respect his position. I respect his opinion. Certainly, he is looking at the Muslim world as an ally. We're not saying Muslims are bad people. Our concern should be really with the hardliners, with the Sharia law, followers, with the people that want to implement every single hateful teaching found in the Quran. Now, there are reformers in Islam that would like to reinterpret the Quran differently. There are those who would like to ignore these violent verses and teachings found in there. But the problem is they are, even though they're majority by number, they're not majority in terms of voicing out their opposition.
Okay, so let me ask you this. Have you heard the recent story came out within the last week that Delta Airlines has created an alliance with Saudi Arabia in order to facilitate the ease of transportation from America to go into Saudi Arabia? Right now, you really, as far as my research has shown, you can't really fly an American airline directly into Saudi Arabia. You need to transfer in Europe and fly by means of Egypt Air or Lufthansa or something else. And as an American company, Delta Airlines is then saying we will adhere to the visa requirements of Saudi Arabia because we have no choice. We're just a vehicle of transportation. But those visa requirements require, for example, a woman to be met by a male chaperone. As you've said, they don't allow anybody with an Israeli passport. They don't allow any non-Islamic articles of faith. As an American now, how do you feel about Delta Airlines making that arrangement with Saudi Arabia?
Well, I mean, all of these arrangements you mentioned have been implemented for a long time. So Delta is just right now adapting what's been there. Whether they fly directly or they don't fly directly, any flight that comes into Saudi Arabia must adhere to all of these guidelines. So Delta, of course, is looking at a business opportunity, and therefore they have no choice but to accept all of these guidelines.
No, but I'm just asking you, when you talk about viewing life from a different moral compass, which I do, including companies, does it trouble you that they are basically saying, we're going to go along with you for the sake of earning more money?
Well, that's true. And now think about it the other way. Sooner or later, they are going to go also along the way with the Sharia law requirements here locally in the U.S. as it is being done in Europe. That's my concern.
What do you mean?
Meaning bringing Sharia law to the U.S. and beginning to ask for little here and little there in the Islamic communities, and sooner or later, Sharia law will begin to flourish into a larger communities.
Yes, that's a very big concern of a lot of people. I know it started in Minnesota with the cab drivers. They didn't want to take people that were drunk and all kinds of different things. It's true. Yes.
Yes, and we know that, it's not a matter of being alarmed because it's going to happen tomorrow, but it will happen. Look at Europe. It took 100 years for these things to get to where they are today. In the U.S., in my mind, it's going to take a lot less than that.
So what should we do as Americans who feel very strongly that there are certain aspects of our culture that we simply will not give up or give in?
Very simple. We need to always be educated. And in this case, we need to learn about the teaching of Islam. We need to read about it. We need to understand what is Sharia law. What does it promote? What does it permit? What does it prohibit? And then we need to also reach out to our representatives who are the lawmakers. We want to be basically voicing out our troubling signs, our opinions, our oppositions. We're not here, like I said, to cast out Muslims. We respect anyone who comes to the U.S. to live under our Constitution, just like when we go there, we live under their Constitution. So we really need to be proactive instead of just being reactive to everything that happens around us.
Thank you, Mr. Al-Fadi. Thanks for being on the Lisa Wexler Show today. It's a pleasure.
Thank you so much, and I just want to point out that all of these issues and more have been listed in our book, The Quran Dilemma, that people can get from the Quran.com website.
And how do you spell the Quran?
It is Quran.
Quran.com?
Yeah, thequran.com. That's
thequran.com. Thank you very much, Mr. Al-Fadi. You've just been listening to A Piece of Lisa. If you'd like to listen to the whole 2-hour show, please go to lisawexler.com, where all shows are archived. And do follow me on Twitter, @Lisa Wexler. Thanks for listening.